The dust hung heavy in the evening air, clinging to the weathered wood of the saloon and the tired canvas of the general store. Elias rode into town quietly, a stranger in a familiar place. 7 years had passed since he last stood on this main street. But the ache in his chest told him nothing had truly changed. He had come back for one reason only, to see her one last time before he was gone for good. He dismounted and tied his horse to the rail. The town of Harmony Creek had grown a little, a new stable here, a new storefront there. But the heart of it was the same, a collection of hopes and dreams, a long way from anywhere else. He walked toward the mercantile, his gaze fixed on the woman outside. Cora was just as he remembered her, perhaps a little more graceful, a little more settled. She was laughing, holding a sack of flour and talking to a man standing beside her. The man was tall and kind-looking, with a wide-brimmed hat. A cold fist clenched around Elias's heart. He didn't need to ask who the man was. It was Thomas, the man she was to marry in a few short weeks. Cora's laughter faded as she turned, her eyes falling on Elias. The smile on her face vanished, replaced by a storm of confusion and hurt. Her hand went to her throat, her knuckles white. She said his name, a soft whisper that was lost in the vastness of the prairie air. Elias wanted to run. He wanted to get on his horse and ride until his lungs burned and his mind was empty. But he couldn't. Not without giving her an explanation, a truth he had carried with him all this time. He took a step toward her. Cora, he said, his voice a low rumble. They came back. Thomas stepped between them. I don't believe we've met, he said, his voice polite but firm. I'm Thomas. And you are? Elias, he answered, meeting Thomas's gaze. An old friend of Cora's. Elias is a ghost, Cora said, her voice shaking with controlled anger. A ghost from a time that's long past. The words were a direct hit. He deserved it. He had left without a word, vanished into the night with a gang of outlaws. He couldn't tell her the truth then. He still couldn't. Not when she was on the verge of starting a new, safe life. That night Elias found work at the local stable. He slept in the hayloft, the scent of hay and horses filling his dreams. He would see Cora from a distance. She went about her days, helping at the mercantile, her bright hair a beacon in the dusty streets. She always looked happy, and that was all that mattered. But late one night, he heard a sound below. It was Cora. She was leaning against a stall, her face buried in her hands. He climbed down the ladder, his heart in his throat. Cora? He asked softly. She jumped, startled, and wiped her face. What are you doing here? I work here, he said simply. Are you all right? She didn't answer right away. She just stared at him, her eyes filled with years of pain he had caused. Why did you do it, Elias? Why did you leave? He couldn't lie, not to her face. I had to. Had to? You had to leave me, your family, everything we had. The words were a bitter accusation, and they cut deep. You were my world, Elias. You told me we would leave this town together, build a life in California. And then, poof, you were gone. The only thing I knew was that the notorious Black Wolf Gang had been through town, and you were nowhere to be found. The Black Wolf Gang. The name was a shiver down his spine. He had joined them for a reason, a desperate bargain he had made to save his family from ruin. He had hoped no one would connect him to them, but the whispers had traveled faster than he could ride. Cora, please, he said, his voice strained. I can't explain. You don't need to, she said, her voice cold now. I have Thomas. He's a good man. He's safe. He loves me. She turned and left, leaving Elias alone in the dark stable with the weight of his secret. He was a ghost, just as she had said. A ghost with a beating heart. Still aching for a love he could never have again. The weeks passed in a blur of hard work and silent longing. Elias kept to himself, but he couldn't help but see Cora and Thomas together. Thomas was a kind man, a pillar of the community, and he clearly adored her. Elias felt a pang of guilt, knowing his presence was a shadow on the happiness she had found. One afternoon, a powerful storm rolled in. The winds whipped through Harmony Creek, and a flash flood warning was issued for the nearby river. The town was suddenly a hive of activity, preparing for the worst. Elias found himself working side by side with Thomas, sandbagging the riverbank. They worked in silence for a long time. Finally, Thomas spoke. "Cora told me about you," he said, his voice even. "She said you were her first love?" Elias paused, his shovel resting on the ground. "That was a long time ago." "She was heartbroken when you left," Thomas continued, looking at the swollen river. "She's not the same person she was then. But she is happy now. I've promised to keep her safe." Elias swallowed hard. "She deserves to be happy." "I agree," Thomas said, and for the first time Elias felt a flicker of respect for the man. He wasn't a rival. He was a good man protecting the woman Elias loved. The storm raged for 2 days. The river threatened to overflow, and the entire town worked tirelessly. Elias, with his hard-earned strength and knowledge of the land, became an invaluable asset. He was everywhere, lifting heavy logs, shoring up a crumbling wall, his movements precise and fast. He worked without a break, driven by a need to prove he was more than the man everyone thought he was. He was proving to Cora without a single word that he would always be there for her. He found her one evening, huddled in the general store, her face pale with exhaustion. She handed him a bowl of warm stew. "You've been working all day and night," she said. "You need to eat." He took the bowl, his fingers brushing against hers. A jolt went through him. "Thank you. Why did you come back, Elias?" she asked again, her voice soft and vulnerable. "Just to see me?" He looked into her eyes, and for a second he was back in time, standing under the same sky, telling her stories of a future they would have together. "Yamai," he confessed. "I came back for you." Her eyes filled with tears, and she quickly looked away. The moment was too fragile, too dangerous. Thomas was her future. Elias was a ghost. The storm passed, but the trouble wasn't over. One morning, a rider came into town, his horse winded. He was the messenger from a nearby ranch. "The Black Wolf Gang is back," he gasped. "They're raiding the ranches, heading this way. They're looking for someone." A cold dread spread through the town. Elias knew who they were looking for. He had broken his promise to them, and they had a long memory. He had to face them. He had to protect the town. He had to protect Cora. He found Thomas, his face grim. "I need you to listen to me," Elias said. "The Black Wolf Gang is coming, and they're coming for me." Thomas looked at him, his face a mask of confusion. "What are you talking about?" "Years ago my family was in debt to a very bad man," Elias began, the words tumbling out. "They were going to take our land. I had no choice. I joined the Black Wolf Gang to pay the debt. I did their work, but I never hurt anyone. They promised my family would be safe." He took a deep breath. "But when it was all over, they told me I could never leave. I had to disappear. The only way I could leave them was to run and never look back. I knew they would come looking for me one day. They would come looking for the one thing I valued most in the world. And that's you, Cora." He turned to look at her. She stood a few feet away, her eyes wide with shock and understanding. "I left you to protect you," he said, his voice raw. "I couldn't have you. I was a wanted man. I was poison. I couldn't risk you being with me. They would have found you, and they would have hurt you. I chose to save your life, even if it meant breaking my own heart. I chose to leave you, so that you could be happy and safe." Cora took a shaky step toward him. "You lied to me," she said, her voice a mix of pain and relief. "I lied so you would hate me," he said. "It was the only way I knew how to make you forget me. I wanted you to live a long, happy life, far away from all this." Thomas was silent. He looked from Elias to Cora, and in his eyes, Elias saw not anger, but a profound sadness. The outlaws arrived a few hours later, a cloud of dust on the horizon. They were led by a man with a scarred face, a man Elias knew all too well. "We came for what's ours, Elias," the leader sneered, "and we hear you found something worth dying for." Elias stepped forward, his body tense. "This town has nothing to do with this," he said. "I'm the one you want." "And who's the pretty little bird you've been hiding?" the leader asked, his eyes sweeping over Cora. "Looks like you have a weak spot, Elias, and a weak spot gets a man killed." Just as the outlaw raised his gun, Thomas, from behind, pushed Cora out of the way. The gun went off, and a hot, blinding pain shot through Elias's side. He stumbled back, a scream ripped from Cora's throat. The outlaws were on him in a second. But before they could finish him, the entire town, armed with whatever they had, Shovels, guns, even rolling pins stood in their way. They had seen Elias's sacrifice, and they would not let him die. A fierce gunfight erupted. Elias, wounded but fueled by a desperate need to protect Cora, fought with a strength he hadn't known he had. He fought for his second chance. He fought for his redemption. When the dust settled, the outlaws were gone, defeated and driven out of town. Elias lay on the ground, his side bleeding, Cora's face a blur above him. Thomas was at her side. Cora, Thomas said, his voice low and solemn. I've been thinking about what Elias said. You two, you have a past, a love that's been waiting, and I love you too much to stand in your way. You belong with him. You always did. I will be okay. I will find a love of my own. But you two, you have a story that needs to be finished. Cora didn't say anything. She just looked at Thomas, her eyes filled with gratitude. Then she looked down at Elias, tears streaming down her face. She knelt and held his hand, her touch so gentle he almost didn't feel the pain. You came back for me, she whispered. You came back for me. I never left, he said, his voice a hoarse whisper. Not really. Not in my heart. Weeks later, Elias was recovering. The town had come together to help him, a testament to the way he had fought for them all. He was no longer the ghost. He was a hero. He was a man with a future. He stood on the porch, a cool breeze rustling the leaves. He heard footsteps behind him and turned to see Cora. She was wearing a simple dress, her hair braided. She looked more beautiful than he had ever seen her. She walked to him, and he took her in his arms. The scent of her hair, the feel of her in his arms, it was everything he had dreamed of. Cora, he said, his voice choked with emotion. I can't believe I get to have this. I thought I lost you forever. You never lost me, she said, her voice filled with an overwhelming love. I never stopped waiting for you. And now, my love, you have finally come home. He kissed her then, and it was a kiss that held all the love, all the sacrifice, and all the redemption in the world. It was a kiss that sealed their love under the endless western sky, a story finally fulfilled.